Yeah. Ugh. Sorry. Protein shake. It's in the back of my throat. All right. Hey, YouTubes. How are you today? I am online. It is a September the 12th, and we're going to be talking about step one, day one. Uh, had a pretty good week overall. Started back up. I had some crazy back pain that's been plaguing me over the past 2 months, and I'm back to it again, starting a bunch of stuff all at one time, and just happy to be back. And it kind of aligns with the day one, step one uh, type of recovery, as well as just starting in general, because that day one is always the most nerve wracking, and for most of us, I think we've gone through day one hundreds of times, if not, maybe even thousands, with the different things that we've experienced in our lives, or we're gonna stop it this next time. So yeah, we're gonna talk about day one today. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. Thank you for those of you who are watching. If you'd like to jump on the chat or you have any questions, please let me know. Just pop a comment in and I'll be happy to chat with you. All right, so day one, step one, in so many ways, is it's it's universal. That there is a moment in most people's lives for most monumental things that they can remember. And I would say for myself, I can remember the first day of school, making a decision to go, to do film, meeting my wife for the first time. And I do, really remember like kicking the habit for weight loss. I don't really remember when I just kind of said enough is enough, or day one for when I stopped gambling and stuff like that, because I was able to stop those a lot faster than the food temptations that I was under. But day ones are humongous in our lives. And the first question I have for everybody is, how many times have you been there with that day one? If you want to comment, if you're watching the stream right now, or if you're watching the upload later, please comment below. How many times have you been there with that first day? I'm going to do something. I'm going to change my life. Maybe it's starting to run. Maybe it's the first day of university, or who knows? It could be a lot of different things that could be causing you to have that day one. So, in the sense of addiction, day one seems to be one of those things that's a huge, monumental moment that, again, happens over and over again. I know for me, I did have hundreds of times where I wanted to break various addictions. I think the weight was by far the hardest one, when I lost about 125 pounds. Losing that weight was very difficult, and I think from honestly around grade 3, which would be about 9 or 10 years old, until my mid 20s, I had day ones pretty much every day. Like, I was gonna change, I was gonna start in a new direction. For those of you who joined, how are you? If you'd like to drop a comment or say hello, that'd be amazing. We're talking about our day one, and how you can break addictions in various ways. And the question I posed is, how many times have you been there with that day one? Uh, hey, how are you? No Pride. Okay, it's a tough name. Um, no Pride in Genocide. Hello, how are you? Before there was Jesus and God, because He is the one we have above our country. But as soon as we become aware of Allah, I immediately converted to Islam. Okay, well, I do hope that you look into that a little bit more, Gross, in your conversion to Islam, and to look into the thought process of what you're saying here about Jesus and God, because He is one. We have above our country. Okay, well, we could always chat about that at some point if you'd like. But I would definitely say, hey, Kaylee Smith, how are you? I would definitely say, I would, you really want to look over that. Yes. Uh, my heart is broken by that. My mom came from an Islamic background, and she came out of it, and I hope that you can take the time to to look into what you believe and see if it's real or not. That's all I can really say. Any suggestions for loose skin after weight loss? That is a tough one. The reason for that is because your body, like I lost about 120 pounds, 125 pounds, and as a bigger guy, I guess I had more weight to lose in distribution over my body. And so there are different kinds of, I think, cortisone creams that you can use, or skin tightening creams that you can look into. I'm sure there's, different herbal medications or herbal brews you could use. But I'd be very careful about that, and check with the not nutritionist, with a naturopath to see on that side, or you could see, go more the chemical path as well. Surgery is usually the way people have to go if they really want to get rid of those loose skin. And, I do hope that Christina, you're able to find that path that way. Looks like there is some. Oh yes, I can see the pic now. Okay, yeah, there's trolls, and you know what? That's okay. I don't mind trolls at all. I don't mind people who are struggling in life or who are spending time, going from chat to chat. I'm happy that they're here and spending some time with us today, and hopefully their lives can be changed on some way or another. But thank you everyone for chatting already in the group. It's pretty cool already. So we're going on day one, step one. How many times have you been there? I know, again, for myself, it's been hundreds and hundreds of times. I've stood on the precipice of that mountain, looked over the edge and said, I want to change today. I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to stop doing that. And most of the time, it becomes overwhelming, and that's not a good place to be. We want to be able to, have like a framework to be able to just to step into day one properly, because I don't think it's a real day one, a real start, unless you have some steps ahead. So I'd say then we have to really then take one more step back into that step one and say, what is the motivation of why we want to change of a certain habit? When I struggled with gambling, and that took years for me to break, and it wasn't as hard as maybe the weight loss and breaking X-rated content. But in breaking the gambling addiction, it was because I was losing valuable money that at the time my mom, my dad, and my sister needed. My dad had mental health issues. And even though I was winning a lot of the time, I had those lows where I was losing hundreds or thousands of dollars, and it became a motivation to really break that, because money easy come, easy go. It's just one of those things where you don't want it to dwell on things that, they just come really easy and go really easily. So I don't know, for yourselves, if you're struggling with addiction, what might be the motivation for you to be doing this thing to break to break this addiction in your life? Another one I have was for gaming. I used to game to escape the problems of my life, the tough neighborhood that I used to live in, and I would spend 6, 8, 10 hours a day gaming, and this was before streaming, so I wasn't even making any money off of it or anything. I was just gaming for hours on end, just to dull the pain, dull the frustration, just dull my mind. And it was, for the way I was able to kick that was the motivation behind my step forward into removing games for a while. I still video game now, and I only video game once I've spent time with God. Once I have made sure that I've spent time with my wife and my kids, that I've gone to work, that I've done all my YouTube stuff, that I've done my editing, I've done my Bible study, I've worked out. When all those things are done for the week, there's 1 or 2 days in the week I will video game. But there was a time and place when I was probably putting in like 50, 60, 70 hours a week into gaming to escape the problems that I was facing and the frustrations that I was having. And the motivation I had to break that was watching myself gain weight, watching my X-rated content go up, watching my lack of motivation basically kill me. I was in my mid-20s, I'm 40 now, and my blood pressure was through the roof. My cholesterol was through the roof, and I was on the verge of diabetes, and it was from just sitting sedentary. I sometimes wish I was born in the generation to come, where it's like, VR is where it's at, and you're running around doing stuff. So gaming would have probably been a lot more of a healthy obsession for me. But in this case, for me, it was a lot of sitting down, a lot of sedentary stuff, and my health was at risk. So you have to kind of think of the motivation behind your first step one. What are you gambling on? So I was gambling Proline at the, hey, Christina Down, it's nice to chat with you. So I was gambling I was on Proline a lot. So Proline's in Ontario. It started in high school because I was about 6'3" in high school, 280 to 300 pounds at any given time. And I would just go and fill out a Proline sheet and, pick like 5 games, 7 games, do over under points wise, or go for like 10, 20, 50, $100 bets sometimes. And then we also ran a gambling ring at my school because my buddy 25 years ago really was fantastic at web design from the get-go. Like, I can't even remember, it's way before WordPress, HTML. He was just making simple websites, and we'd have dozens of people entering in $5, $10. We'd take home half, and then sometimes we'd even win the pot. And then I'd play cards. I got into some bad situations playing Texas Hold'em, and so over time, I ended up losing a lot and sometimes gaining a lot. But I realized that it was again giving me such horrible anxiety. You totally pro and you're an addict. In my case, it was for beer. And I understand why gaming is so appealing, because it adds, especially when you're playing like a sports type gambling, it adds that extra layer, that extra anticipation. Your heart goes crazy and you love it, but when you lose, oh, it's the worst. It's the worst highs and lows like I think I've ever experienced. So as we're talking again today about day one and breaking addiction, we have to really look at the motivation to want to break those addictions. And for me, it was the ups and downs were horrible. They were just horrible. Let me just go back to the chat here. That being said, you must have been a big sports fan. Favorite athlete or sport? Yeah, absolutely. So right here, big enough NFL fan. I'm actually a humongous Bills fan, and we sucked for a long time. So let's go. Ready? Bills, Buffalo. Sorry, Bills. The acronym Buffalo. I love losing Super Bowls. Bills, awful. They're just doing well now. I'm not a bandwagon jumper. I've been on the Bills for a long time. I've loved sports for a long time. I'm a big Raptors fan, not a big fan of the Masai Ujiri, so him leaving has been a bit of a weight off my shoulders to become a Raptors fan again. But I'm a Bills. I'm a sports fan in general. But that was one of the things I had to curb and kick in my life, was my love of sports. It was unbelievable. I have a very, very addictive personality, and so whether it was gambling or with X-rated content or overeating, sports, all of these different types of activities became, unrelenting. It would absorb every ounce of my body, my mind, and that would really take me away from my relationship with God. Oh, nice. Giants, Eli Manning. Yeah, anyone but Brady. That's all I can say. Anybody but Brady. I'm an ABB. Being a Bills fan and having to contend with Brady, I think for 18 or 19 seasons, I think he went like 32-3 against us. So we got tarred. Like, it was like a 90% win ratio for the Patriots. So yeah, I'm so thankful for Eli Manning beating out Tom Brady. But anyway, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. We can always shift the conversation. Always happy to be here on a Friday night. Okay, so let's also remember that there's a verse in the Bible that says, "The thing I don't want to do, I do, and the thing I don't want to do, I do. I continually do." And that's one of those things where I just always want to caveat and say, if you're addicted to something and you're struggling and you really feel like, you can't break this addiction, it's not about perfection. It's about making sure that you are setting up boundaries and making that addiction a little bit further apart, having between your falls, making it, spacing out a little bit further, longer time frames between when you do it. And slowly you will break it over time, but you have to have the right motivation to make that first step. So an encouragement is it's read by Stuart Brown. It's one time delayed is another day without development. So one time or one day delayed is another day without development. So I think we should all start as soon as possible so we don't delay that development. But on the flip side, we have to have that motivation to be able to know why we're doing this. And I think that can be a stumbling block for a lot of people. So in the day one, now that we have some motivation and we have some thought process, we have to think about we shouldn't spend too much time thinking about the challenges and what challenges could hold you back. Because if we do, again, we'll get paralyzed by fear. And we have an addiction because most likely we have an addictive personality, and overthinking is probably one of them. So in the Bible, Matthew 6, verses 34, it says, "Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." That's from the ESV. So we already got a lot of troubles going on in our lives. We shouldn't be spending time trying to plot out and seek out the challenges of tomorrow. We shouldn't be trying to sabotage ourselves, essentially. And that's what the enemy wants to do. They want to sabotage our lives. And addiction is one of the greatest ways that they can sabotage us. So what we want to do is we want to create a motivation and create a kind of steps to move forward. However, and in that, of course, be prepared for any challenges that might come up. But we don't want challenges to ruin us, essentially. We don't want challenges to knock us off where we need to go. All right, just jumping back here, behind you, right on. Looking at you in your room. Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate it. I'm not sure if I have ADD. I'm limited to myself. Read the Bible 3 or 4 chapters a day. Any tips? Any tips to be more, the word more? I think it's more, thank you again, Christina, for your question here. So I'd say, reading a few chapters a day is fantastic. And if you want to read, that's how you absorb information. My wife is very similar in that way. She can read 3 or 4 chapters, and that's how she absorbs information very well. I would suggest go over those chapters maybe a few times if you want to absorb it better. So, spend time, read the word, read those 3 or 4 chapters, pray, then go back and maybe read one chapter that for the first chapter you read, then pray about it, maybe make some notes, and continue the cycle that way. I think that would be probably the best way to go about it. Okay. Thank you again for that question. Keep them coming if anyone has any thoughts or questions about day one step, the step one, or if there's any other questions that you have just about life, finances. I've overcome multiple addictions in my life, and I'm happy to share stories, tips, thoughts. Lost 120 pounds, stopped gambling, stopped excessive gaming, had massive rage issues, so I've gone through a lot, and I've been blessed to be helped a lot. So we still have to plan our goals out. We still have to have those long-term thought processes, but most of the time we fail because we're looking beyond what our needs are for the day to have that executed properly. And if you don't believe me, I'd say then, let's look at even how God operates within the creation story. So we know that God is perfect and perfect in planning. However, God still took the time within our matter, within our energy, within our space, and with our time. God still took things a day at a time. And I think it was for our benefit that it was written this way and that it was done this way, was because it needed to be plotted out and planned out. There's a day, one day is a day. It's very much time sensitive. The Bible's all about days and time and senses, seasons, coming and going, years of people's lives. So if God spent the time to be able to make days, we need to be able to plot out to some level how we're going to not only take the step day one to break those addictions, but then move to that next level, that next step, without letting the challenges of the day get to us. And that's a hard line. So that's why most people start day one 100 times or 1,000 times, because they're not prepared to deal with both sides, the horrible challenges as well as the long-term goals. So if God can do it, obviously God can do it through us, and God did it for our gain by making the world the way he did in the day-to-day. So my question to anyone in the chat is, what are you struggling with today? Do you have any questions on addiction, breaking your addictions? Again, we're talking about day one, step one. Okay. Sometimes we're held back because of our self-worth. Let me say that we're the most complex creatures in our universe. We are just so blessed. We're capable of such fantastic things and such brutal, horrible, heinous things. All you have to do is turn on the news for 4 seconds and you're just bombarded with the evil that goes on in the world. But if you really take the time to look into the amount of people who are trying to cure disease, or who are saving someone from a burning bush, or just the firefighters and EMS workers and all the people that are working in the trenches in the different sectors for the unhoused, and for people who are really struggling, there's a lot of wonderful good things that are happening in our world as well. So do not sell yourself short. You are a part of that complex world that God has made, and you are a complex creature that if you're struggling with something, it's okay. You're on day one, step one. Maybe you're a few days in, that's fine, but we're reevaluating what it means to be on day one. And that day one is finding your motivation and plotting out some steps without getting overrun with the challenges you might face in the future. Okay. I have 7 different things that I struggle with God's help, that I was able to overcome. And if you'd like to hear about anything tonight, please let me know. Or if you'd like to drop a question, that's great. I dealt with anger, stealing, X-rated content, gambling, food, spending, and gaming. The X-rated content by far was the longest. I struggled with that for about 25 years, where it was an addiction daily for sure, sometimes multiple times a day. And it was from a place of domination. Like, I wanted to be a dominating person. I wanted to dominate the bullies in my life, the people who hurt me. And I found that it was the easiest, the most cowardly way was to do that on a screen with women who would never want to be with me, and who were faking something that was good and real, which is love in marriage, but taking away the 99% of the hard work, the joys, all the other feelings that are combined. So, those are the things I struggle with. I will continue to move forward in the chat, but I have another message here. If the Jays make the playoffs, will you take your fam to a game? Sorry, off topic. No, absolutely. I love talking sports too. Totally down to talk sports whenever. No, I am too poor for that. No, I'm not that too poor. I do, by God's grace, I'm fairly blessed. It took a long time. Like, I think if you've been in the chat before, I've helped my mom and my dad and sister with over $250,000 worth of money over a 20-year period. I paid a lot of their bills. I helped them to get into a safe place. I'm doing very well with my family now. We live very simply. I would love to go to a Jays game, but they're too young too. I think if they were super fans, or they were into the sport, or a sport, and there was a championship or a playoff type scenario, and when they're much older and they can remember, sure. But if not, there's bedtimes, there's nap times, there's too many other things to worry about than to take them to the Jays game, or the Jays in the playoffs. And to be honest with you, unless I really see the bullpen doing better, I'm really nervous for any game that goes into the 8th or 9th without a 10-run lead. So again, thank you for the questions tonight. So over the next few weeks and months and years, I'm going to be talking about the progression of breaking addiction across the board with self-control and boundaries as some of the 2 major points of most conversations, because I don't think we have to deal with the spiritual side of things. We have to deal with self-worth and the spiritual realm and how real that is, and Bible talk, Bible conversation, and allowing our spirit to grow stronger. But a lot of the times people are not willing to do the practical, and I really want to hit on the practical in the months and years into the future here. Let's see here. Let's go back to the questions. Good answer. Thank you for asking. I appreciate you. What can you do today to set up boundaries or laneways for you to run away from temptation? So that's another question I think that a lot of people are not willing to answer. What things can you do to set up boundaries so that your addiction isn't even coming at you, or speed laneways for you to race out of there if the temptation comes? Well, let's look at temptation first. To run from temptation, consider the following Bible principle here. From Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 22. So 2 in Timothy. All right, so flee from evil desires of your youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who can call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So this arises us to run. It's not be strong, take it, like, of course you got to put on the armor, but you need to run when temptation comes, and you need to have those laneways to be able to help you to escape in a quick amount of time. Because if you do not and you dwell, your brain will become mush. I know, for instance, when I was struggling, let's say with food, there's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to be strong, I'm going to have self-control, I'm not going to eat that food. Or I could take that food and I could remove it from my home, give it to other people, have a mini party, get the food out of my house. Sometimes if you have to, if it's not great food that's not good for you at all, just chuck it in the garbage. And don't just run away from food as a whole. Plan to go out and have, a cookie. Plan to go out and do something fun, as long as it's not, inherently sinful. Plan to have something good for yourself. Like, again, I plan to game. So again, once I've rested well, spent time with God, spent time with my wife, my daughters, I've gone to work, done the YouTube stuff, done my editing stuff, I've done all the things that I can, then I game on a Saturday or maybe Sunday night for a bit, just to relax and enjoy. But I have to set up those boundaries and make sure that I don't go down that road of food or gaming, and I put up boundaries or laneways to just run from my problems, and not run from my problems in a bad way, but run from the temptation. And so if we look at resisting temptation, right, which is the boundaries, it's to submit yourself then to the Lord and resist evil, and they will flee from you. So when you resist evil and you allow for the temptation to come, and it's kind of like it bounces off of you, it's because you've set up those boundaries. So it's one thing to set up a laneway to run away. It's another thing to, hey, there was for a long time when I was struggling with X-rated content, that my wife would have the password to our Wi-Fi. I did not. I had almost no data. And so to overcome my X-rated content addiction, I would just tell my wife, look, every night I'm going to, at 9 o'clock, my Wi-Fi is getting turned off, I'm deleting it. And then the next morning, she was a trooper. She would sign me on throughout the day so I could get work done, do what I had to do. The only data I had for about 5 years was 500 megabytes, if you can believe that, just for Google Maps. And being a bit of a cheapskate, I didn't want to go over and spend the extra overages, so that kept me accountable. And I saw amazing breakthroughs in my spiritual realm from breaking that addiction by setting up those boundaries. So we have to be radical in our motivation. We have to be radical after we figure out our motivation as to why we want to quit a certain addiction, or we want to fight a certain addiction in our day one. And the other part is being radical about, and not in the terrible sense of what the word radical has become, but we have to be unbelievably stringent to overcome these terrible addictions that will catch up with us in the long term. I can tell you, with the X-rated content that I struggled with for about 25 years, it has caused my brain years and years of rewiring time, and it really sucks. Okay. How was the gaming and addiction for you? Oh, hey Sean, how are you? Nice to talk to you again. So gaming for me was a humongous escape. I would spend hours and hours, like I'd say like anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a night. Like I had a job, but I would come home and game. I'd lose sleep. It was just a way to drown out the world. I was still overweight at the time. I was, into the X-rated content. And so gaming was, I just go move to the next game, buy the next game, keep playing, keep getting frustrated, drowning myself in a world where I wasn't confronting my manhood, confronting the other problems that I had in my life. And so it was, if I didn't game, I would just go down a terrible road. And again, gaming is fine. A lot of things in this life are fine. Sports are fine. Working out is fine. Eating healthily is fine. But when things go overboard, if it's not inherently sinful, it becomes a big addiction. And I'm going to actually run through. It's a great timing question. Great timing for your question, Sean. as I'm going to go through the practical ways to set up resistance. So for me, I'm going to block them into a few different blocks here. So the first one I'm going to go to is anger, hate, and pride. So in setting up resistance, whether it's the laneways to run away or whether it's the boundaries that you have to build up, for your anger, pride, and hate, emotional, essentially, sin or emotional addiction, where you get a high off of your rage, or you look down on people in pride, or your hate just bubbles up and boils inside of you. You have to know ahead of time with your boundaries, with self-control, how to diffuse yourself, how to step away from a situation, how to have maybe a list of things around you to constantly refer to if you're going to be in a situation where you're prideful. Maybe you're a very educated person and you know a lot in the room. Maybe it's you need to spend time practicing just listening to people. Maybe you have struggled with hate, and not in the hate of even race or financial prejudice or anything like that, but you're just so filled with anyone that does something better than you. You want to just lash out at them. There's multiple ways in which you can set up boundaries for yourself, where you can either look to the scriptures, look to God, or even again create a practical list of all of the people in life that you have maybe hurt or wronged, and you're now getting to a place in your life where you're seeing where you were maybe that person that maybe you excelled beyond them, and now you can be in a better place to help them, and so maybe those people can help you, and so you bridge the gap of that hate or that frustration or that really visceral feeling that you have into a positive feeling. Sean says, what are some of the ways to improve your finances if you're starting from scratch, and how much money do you need before marriage? Whoa, that's a heavy question. All right, we're going to press pause and we're going to jump into this question. I love questions. I will always have prepared notes for an hour or two, but if questions come up, I am down. All right, so what are some good ways to improve your finances if you are starting from scratch? We'll answer that question first. I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, it is to make a budget. And the simplest of making a budget is we need to find out how much you owe, or how much money if you do. And Sean, we can do this as a practical if you'd like. In your case, you can give me fake numbers if you want to, but do you owe anything? And if you do owe something, that should be one of the priorities that you should be paying off beyond your bills. So the first number you need to know is how much do you make every month. And usually it's a number that's kind of tricky because most people will go by the 4-week interval. Technically, we actually have 4.2 weeks per month. So if you look at it if you're being paid in 1-week increments, then you'll feel that even more so, like the 4.2 weeks in a month, because of the 28 days and then the extra days that usually come in July and August and most of the months. So you have 26, and then if you get paid bi-weekly, there's 26 intervals. And those 26 intervals, if you divide them by 6 months, then you're gonna get 4.2 paychecks per month. So I think that's the first thing you need to know, is either you're going to mark down that you're getting paid in 4-week intervals or 4.2-week intervals. So for instance, I do 4-week intervals and I have all those 0.2s. So if you were to do 6 times 4 weeks, that's 24 weeks, and half a year is 26 weeks. So those extra 2 paychecks that I would get, so those extra 2 weeks that I'd be getting paid for, I would take that and put that towards my car, or I take that and put that towards a bill. And so whenever my payday, say my payday was Wednesday, and if there's 5 Wednesdays in a month and I've been working the whole time, I'm going to be able to have 3 paychecks in that month if everything lines up. So if I got paid on, say, the 3rd, the 17th, the 17th, and then the 31st. If it's 31 days and I'm able to get those 3 Wednesdays, if those days fall on there, then I know that 3rd check I can throw down on a massive bill or to have my car paid or to save for. So number one is to know how you're going to break things down month by month. And number two is once you figured that out, you need to be able to see how much your bills are. So write down roughly all of the bills that you have. So you're going to go with, your rent, your food, any extra utility type bills, your credit cards, any of the hobbies you might have, any of the extra expenditures, maybe traveling or tickets to things. Subscriptions are a huge one now. There's so many. I used to tell my friends, like, they're like, oh, Netflix, there's only gonna be 3 or 4 streaming sites and it's gonna be amazing. No, there's like 50 now and it's worse than cable. Sometimes I wish we still had cable, minus the idea of fast forwarding. I love the idea of streaming and fast forwarding. But anyway, I digress. So the subscription side of things. And then you have to look at those small insignificant spends, like you just tap for some parking, or you grab a bubble tea, or you get an extra coffee. And you have to sit down with your credit card. You have to sit down with your bank account online, which most people do everything online, and just write down all the miscellaneous, all those extra random things, and figure out how you spend your money and where your money is going. So number one, find out if you're going to do like 4 weeks or 4.2 weeks. Number two, write down all your bills. Number three, and then scour your bank account and your credit cards to see how you're spending, and if there's any miscellaneous things that you're missing, then you got to tally that up. If you owe now something on credit cards, you have loans or student loans, then any extra money you have, you need to start throwing down on that and pay that off as fast as possible. If you are out of debt, then you're already winning. But if you are in debt, it's more about managing that debt, especially if in the second part, if you want to inevitably get married. So being fiscally responsible is a huge part of being married, especially if you want to be the head of your household. So if, let's say, you make $7,000 a month, you figure out that you're spending like $6,000 or $7,000 a month on your bills and your miscellaneous, you may want to start thinking about things that you can cut down, especially if you have debt. Now, if that's all covered and maybe you don't have any debt, or your debt's going to be a long-term, I'm going to pay $300 or $500 a month for a long time to get rid of that debt, and you're thinking about getting married, or you have someone in your life, you want to then, let me break it off into two streams. Stream number one is you're with someone right now, and you have to then ask them about their finances, especially if you're dating or you're getting engaged. And you have to really see, are you going to be a couple who has a joint bank account? Or are you going to have a couple that you're going to have two bank accounts, his and her? I would really suggest going with the one bank account, because I think that helps unify a relationship, but y'all really got to talk money like excessively at the beginning. When I first was dating my wife, I never asked her finances off the bat. I was pretty sure she made more than I did, which she did. She made quite a bit more than I did when we first started dating. And now I'm the only one who works, and she's a stay-at-home mom. Praise God, we make it work. But at the time, it was a blessing, because I asked her before she told me how much she made if we would want to do a joint bank account or not. I was the one who had saved incredibly well, and she was the one who was making way more money than me, but she didn't know how to save. So when I came into our marriage, I had actually way more in savings than she did, and she inevitably caught up and went past me before we had our kids, and then she ended up quitting her job. But the main thing is you have to be on the same page. And if you are going to be married and you have, like, one of you has debt, you want to start smashing that off right away. So the last part is, how much money do you need before you get married? I would say, at minimum, the rule is have 3 months saved of your total bills as a couple. So you got to sit down and go through all the bills, your hypothetical place where you want to live, whether it's your mortgage. I live in Toronto. It's usually renting because everything is super expensive. Even as things crash, it's super expensive. So you want to be able to figure out as many of your bills as possible, go through 3 or 4 months of your independent spending, and see how you can collide that together. It's worth running the numbers to know, what kind of money you're going to have to spend. And then you have to kind of think, well, if I'm going to get married, how big is my wedding? Am I going to do it at City Hall for $1,000 and maybe have a dinner with some friends? Or am I going to spend 10,000, 20,000, 40,000? And then you have to start, I'd say, saving for that, depending on how generous your family is. But the main number I would say is beyond the wedding stuff. And as long as you're paying a good percentage into like a student loan or a MasterCard or whatever it might be, is I'd say a minimum of 3 months of your total bills together. I think that's a very smart place to start. I was a bit extreme. I wanted a year worth of savings for our bills just in case I have a bad back. We wanted to have multiple kids, and I wanted to make sure that we had enough to float, and that's why we never bought anything. And we always wanted to make sure that we were ready to help people, ready to serve people, give money to people if they needed it. And so yeah, we've had a good amount of savings, and now by God's grace, we just get by. We live a simple life for the most part. I love doing this stuff, so I'm a cheapo in a lot of ways, even though we're blessed in many ways. Okay, let me get back to the chat here. How much money do you need to get married? So, okay, so I answered that one. All right, so back to Christina here. I'm being ushered towards becoming a teacher, but I'm in the state. But with the state of kids and curriculum, I don't think it would be meaningful or impactful. But I think I can make an impact as a addiction counselor. Whoa, okay, cool. All right, so I think, wow, either one is going to be a massive calling. So on one side you have a teacher, and on one side you have an addiction counselor. Both streams are going to lead you down a road of a lot of paperwork and things that you can and cannot say. Unless you, and I don't know your faith background, but if you are a Christian, you may be able to, you could think about maybe working at a Christian school, doing very high-end tutoring, and maybe, again, as a Christian counselor, you could be an addiction counselor, and you can move into that realm where you can share your faith more and you can actually have more person-to-person impact. But if you're going the secular route, you are definitely going to have both the counselor side and the teacher side. I think I switched them up. They are both going to definitely put you in boxes. So I would say you really have to dig deep inside, because both are heavy callings. To be a counselor for people with addiction means, hearing some vile, horrible, terrible things, dealing with people who are going to lie to you potentially, people who are in really bad states of mind, who've gone through probably terrible things that have got them into their addiction to begin with, and vice versa. Within the school system, you're going to deal with rough, tough kids and situations, parents. And don't get me wrong, you could work for an amazing organization as an addiction counselor and have a lot of people have their lives changed. And you could work for a fantastic school in a great neighborhood. I'd say the main thing is you have to really narrow down your calling and make sure that whatever calling it is, in my opinion, it's from God, and it is, it's set in stone, because I don't think you want to be playing around with either of those fields right now. On the more depth of spiritual side, I will say this. If you want to become a teacher, and you really want to become a teacher, that is so impactful. Because yes, you will be fighting an uphill stream most of the time. Again, unless you work in a Christian school, and you'll find your own problems there too. But if you want to become a teacher and even help a few of those kids from becoming addicts in the future, and you may never know this, right? You may never see the outcome, the fruit of your labor, then absolutely, become a teacher. There's a big brain drain that's going on right now, and if you feel led to become a teacher, praise God, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, and we will definitely pray for you for the decision you have to make. And if you want to become an addiction counselor, well, you'll be on the opposite side of that, where you're going to face people who have, in the school system, in their life, maybe through family, maybe through hurts and pains, or even being drugged, they are now addicted. And if you want to become a counselor, that is fantastic too. So on one side, if you become a teacher, and thank you again for the question, you are going to be able to, without even knowing, potentially prevent people from becoming addicts when they're older. A place of reason and safety if you are a great teacher, and if you do love your students and want to help them to the best of your abilities. And on the flip side, if you want to become an addiction counselor, you're on the other end of what a lot of the kids in the school system may or may not go through. So I think it really comes down to what your calling is and what you really want to do. Do you want to work with individuals, helping them once their life has eroded or they're trying to rebuild their life? Or do you want to be at the beginning where you're stopping it from happening, but obviously on a large scale? You're not doing usually one-on-one, you're not usually doing at all one-on-one or 10-on-1 or even 20-on-1 becoming a teacher. But if you're going to become an addiction counselor, you're going to be doing the one-on-one. So you also have to know your personality type and your energy and how much you can take, because a teacher is going to have to know, an average teacher is going to usually have to have like a booming voice, be able to carry the sound, the room, deal with very tough parents. But if it is something that is in your heart that burns for, helping students, helping people to stay off that bad path, even a handful, please become a teacher. If you're feeling like you can make that impact with people who are dealing with addiction and getting out of it or staying off of it, and that's your calling and that's your passion, then go that direction. Both are fantastic, fantastic and very needed professions right now. Teachers are even, I'd say, even way more. And if you are a Christian and you are feeling that calling, your job may be on the line, especially, and even as an addiction counselor. So I would really say you need to really pray about it and know, really deep down inside, know the calling you have. Even take an extra year off if you have to before making a decision. Becoming a teacher, you've been ushered forward to becoming a teacher. So if you're in the ushering phase, really, bring it before God, bring it before other people, take a lot of personality tests, and do the practical as well as the spiritual to know the difference between the two. Hopefully that helps. If you have any other follow-up questions, please let me know. All right, so the next topic was, I was going to continue on with practical resistance, was for instance, gambling and X-rated content. I grouped those together because they're usually online nowadays. So again, it's your Wi-Fi, it's setting up different time frames maybe in which you'll use the computer. Maybe it's even just handing off your laptop to a loved one. Setting up resistance is a lot of the times just being very vigilant. I'm sure there's apps now that you can probably even turn your phone off or your laptop off, or I've even heard of lock boxes. Now for safety, maybe you want to have like a little Nokia phone, and it's worth the financials if you want to be radical about breaking these types of addictions. So if it's like gambling or X-rated content, stuff that's online, maybe it's getting a lockbox that is a time related, and you have like a little Nokia phone or something like that, one of those old school flip phones, and you just, if you have an emergency, you make your calls or you text people that way. So be vigilant in the practical way about resistance in your day one fight. When it comes to food, drinking, and drugs, those are all things that you would intake into your body. And I would say removing yourself from them. Not saying I'm going to be strong, I'm going to have self-control, I'm going to be patient with myself. It's getting rid of, in the case of food, which we need food to survive, keeping healthy foods, nutritious food, not low-calorie foods, but nutritious food, good foods, healthy foods, foods that are going to help you to sleep better at night. When it comes to the drinking and drugs side of things, you can get that stuff out. You can remove it. You can, I would say, throw it away. Don't give it to other people, and just get it out of your reach, because it is so true. Out of mind. Sorry, is it? Yeah, sorry. Out of sight, out of mind. When it comes to these physical things, like obviously when it comes to the internet, it's a vastly different thing when you're struggling with addiction, or when it comes to your emotions, because they're always going to be with you, or with your emotions, and you can remove them if it's internet based. But if it's something that's essential, like eating is definitely essential. Drinking, to obviously a certain degree, alcohol is not essential, and drugs. These are things that you ingest. Your body has these natural pheromones and different ingestions and salivations. So your body will go through these, like withdrawals is the word I'm looking for. Then, for instance, if it's like overspending or doom scrolling or stealing, things that would allow you to just be so caught up with absorbing things, like the greed side. It's maybe you need to give your wallet to someone. Maybe you need to delete your Amazon account. Maybe you need to be, to go places with people. I struggled with stealing for about 8 years. I stole at stores. I stole from my family. I stole from friends and other people. And when I started telling people, I created those natural barriers that really helped me to stay away from stealing and have that accountability partner. Sometimes it's just as simple as having an accountability partner. When it comes to game, again, we're talking about just strictly ways to resist evil and ways to actually do it in a practical sense in our first steps of our journey. Gaming, idleness, and slothfulness I grouped together as well, because these are all things about pushing off things you need to get done. Whether it's you're idle, you just lounge around, you don't want to do anything, you're not doing the things that you need to do for your family, for your friends, for your life, for your education, whatever it might be. With slothfulness, oversleeping, just wasting the day away, and gaming. Those three things, when you think about addiction, they are so addictive because they make you so passive. And it's things that are addictive can sometimes be like, oh, it's all about the rush or the feeling. It's really and truly anything that's causing you to not do the things that you're supposed to do. And to take those practical steps, that's humongous. So we have in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, we have that reminder that no temptation has overtaken you except for what is common to mankind. Everyone's struggling. Everyone's going through stuff. You're gonna feel bad, especially if you have to share to people what's going on in your life, how much you're hurting. But don't worry, God is faithful, and He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. Temptation, not trials, temptation. And that's a common misconception. People say God won't let you go through more than you can handle. It's a temptation. Just remember that. But when you're tempted, He will also provide a way of escape so that you can endure it, or way out that you can endure it. So always remember that God is always at the epicenter of what's going on, and He understands your pain, your struggles. He went through it all. Jesus on the earth went through it all for you. So the last question for tonight is the same as the first question. In your first steps, what is motivating you? What is allowing you to step forward in whatever addiction you're facing? I don't know what your addiction is. I've gone through 7 major addictions myself, and each of them, when I found that I could make that first step and move to the second step, it was based off of making the right step with the right motivation. Oh, I'm going to pause that. My daughter is having a moment right now, so I'm going to press pause on here for a second, and I hope to be back in a moment. I'm just going to have to go radio silent and see how my daughter is. I will be back in a sec. So I'll end my stream there. My daughter's not feeling so well. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day, evening, morning, or night. God bless you.